My name is Walter Hayes. I'm 57 years old, and for the past 16 years, I've been the operations manager at Coastal Craft Furniture in Savannah, Georgia. Not the sort of man who gives rousing speeches or commands the room during board meetings, just the steady hand keeping the saws humming and the varnish drying in a company that's been crafting high-end wooden furniture for homes and offices across the Southeast. It was a humid Tuesday morning when Elise Carver, the 29-year-old daughter of the company's founder, flipped her hair and said, "We don't need old-timers like you slowing us down." Her words cut through the air of her sleek office like a bandsaw through pine, dismissing me as if it were a formality. I offered a tight, sarcastic smile, nodded once, and walked out. No arguments, no shouting, just a quiet exit. Back at my desk, I packed 16 years of my life into a cardboard box while younger staff, folks I'd trained, some of whom I'd hired straight out of high school, kept their eyes glued to their screens. I'd watch them grow into carpenters, finishers, parents. Not one said a word. Coastal Craft was founded 40 years ago by Henry Carver, a master carpenter who started with a single workbench in his shed and turned it into a $25 million business through sweat and an obsession with quality. Every table, chair, and cabinet bore his mark. Durable, timeless, built to last generations. When Henry's health began to fade, he chose me to run operations. "You're the only one I trust to keep the grain straight," he'd said, clapping a hand on my shoulder. Now Elise, armed with an MBA from Atlanta and 3 years managing a boutique hotel in Charleston, had decided the company needed disruption. To her, that meant replacing hand-finished craftsmanship with mass-produced designs and pushing out anyone who still valued Henry's way. As I carried my box to my pickup truck, a strange calm settled over me. Elise hadn't bothered to read my employment contract, a document Henry had insisted on to fend off competitors trying to poach me. Buried in the fine print was a clause. If I was terminated without cause, I'd receive severance equal to 2 years' salary. I set the box on the passenger seat, hands resting on the wheel, and through the warehouse window I saw the workshop I'd kept running like a well-oiled machine. Lathes I'd maintained, systems I'd designed, people I'd mentored. All about to learn what happens when you discard the hands that built the foundation. I didn't peel out of the lot or slam the door. I just turned the key and drove home to call Margaret Dunn, a lawyer friend who'd been itching for a case this clear-cut. I'm not a flashy man. I was married 26 years to my wife, Clara, before leukemia took her 3 years ago. We raised 2 daughters, both doing well, one a nurse in Raleigh, the other a graphic designer in Austin. My life has been about consistency, showing up, doing the work, making things last. It's how I approach Coastal Craft, and it's how I approach the small side project I'd been tinkering with in my garage. A hand-carved rocking chair for my first grandchild, due in 6 months. Claire and I had always dreamed of passing down something tangible, something that carried our story. Henry Carver was more than a boss. He was the mentor I never had. My own father walked out when I was 10, leaving my mother to raise me and my sister on a waitress's wages. At 40, I was a laid-off mill worker with a technical college certificate in woodworking when Henry took a chance on me. "Degrees don't carve wood," he said during my interview. "Skill and heart do." Within 3 years, he made me operations manager. We weren't the type to grab beers after work, but there was a bond between us. When Clara got sick, Henry adjusted my hours without me asking, ensuring I could drive her to every chemo session. "Family first, Walter," he'd say, "always." The trouble started a year ago when Elise began attending meetings, her tablet glowing with charts about scaling and brand pivots. She'd pitch ideas that would have gutted our quality, sourcing cheaper lumber from overseas, automating hand finishing. I'd catch Henry grimacing, but he'd quietly undo her plans later. "She'll learn, Walter," he told me once, leaning against my office door. "Some things you only understand by doing." The second warning came 4 months ago when Henry announced his retirement. A stroke had left him weakened, and I suspected Elise had pressured him to step down. He handed me a new org chart with Elise as CEO, his eyes avoiding mine. "I made her promise to keep the core team," he said. "Your experience is what holds this place together." I nodded, but my gut told me trouble was coming. The morning after my firing, I sat at my kitchen table. The contract spread out before me. Margaret had highlighted the severance clause in blue. Termination without cause entitled me to 24 months' salary, roughly $280,000. It's ironclad, she'd said. They pay or we sue, and they'll pay my fees too. My phone rang. Henry's name flashed on the screen. I almost let it go to voicemail, but 16 years of respect held firm. "Walter," he said, his voice thin. "What happened yesterday?" "Ask your daughter," I replied, keeping my tone even. "I did. She said you were obstructing progress, undermining her with the crew." I let the silence hang. Henry knew me better than that. I'd never badmouth anyone, let alone sabotage the company I'd helped build. "You're going to file, aren't you?" he asked. "Already have. Margaret Dunn's on it." A heavy sigh. I told her to check the contracts. Told her your clause was there for a reason. A pause. "She didn't just fire you. She let go of Marcus, Ellen, and anyone over 50. My grip tightened on the phone. Marcus was our lead designer, with an eye for detail that couldn't be taught. Ellen ran quality control like a hawk, catching flaws no machine could. Both were irreplaceable. "Is that the legacy you wanted, Henry? Clearing out the people who built Coastal Craft with you?" "You know it's not," he said, voice breaking. I heard Elise's sharp tone in the background, and Henry muttered, "I've got to go." The call cut off. I stared out my kitchen window at the live oak Claire and I planted when we bought this house 22 years ago. We'd braced it through hurricanes, nursed it through drought. It stood strong now, shading the yard where our daughters used to play. Something clicked in me. This wasn't just about money. It was about value, about respecting what takes years to build. I called Marcus, then Ellen, then every veteran employee Elise had axed. Some were furious, others scared. "Check your contracts," I told them. "Call Margaret." Then I dialed Nathan Brooks, owner of Brooks & Sons Furniture, a smaller rival in Augusta. He'd been trying to recruit me for years. "Still want to talk?" I asked. A week later, I sat across from Elise and Coastal Craft's lawyer in a Savannah office. Margaret sat beside me, her briefcase open, my contract front and center. Elise barely glanced at it. "This is absurd," she said. "We're pivoting to a modern vision. That's reason enough." Margaret, calm as a summer tide, pointed to the severance clause. Termination without cause, as defined in Appendix B, requires 24 months' salary, approximately $280,000 for Mr. Hayes. The lawyer, a nervous young man named Tyler, skimmed the document, his brow furrowing. "Ms. Carver, the contract specifies cause as documented performance issues, ethical breaches, or criminal acts." "He was resistant to change," Elise snapped. "That's insubordination." "Where's the paper trail?" Margaret asked. "Warnings, performance plans." Appendix B requires evidence. Tyler flipped through a thin folder, finding nothing. Elise's jaw tightened. "Fine. We'll offer 6 months. Take it or leave it." I said nothing, watching her. She had her father's fierce eyes, but where Henry's fire built things, hers seemed bent on burning them down. Margaret closed her briefcase. "Then we'll proceed with litigation. Discovery should be enlightening, especially regarding the termination of multiple employees over 50. Tyler whispered urgently to Elise, who waved him off. "You'll regret this, Walter," she said, leaning forward. "We'll drag this out in court for years, and no one in Savannah will hire you after we're done." That's when Henry appeared in the doorway, leaning on a cane. He looked frailer than I'd ever seen, but his gaze was sharp. "Elise," he said, "a word." "We're busy, Dad. Now." They stepped outside, their silhouettes arguing through the glass. When they returned, Elise wouldn't meet my eyes. "Tyler," Henry said, "prepare the severance as written." "Dad," Elise began. "Not now." Henry turned to me. "I'm sorry, Walter. This isn't how I wanted it to end." I nodded. No words were needed between us. As Margaret and I stood to leave, Elise blocked my path. "This isn't over. Any supplier who works with you can forget about Coastal Craft contracts." Henry flinched but stayed silent. I thought of my call with Nathan Brooks, the partnership he'd offered, the niche market for custom furniture Coastal Craft had abandoned. You're right, Elise, I said. It isn't over. The severance hit my account 10 days later, $280,000 after taxes. It was more money than I'd ever seen, but it didn't fill the hollow in my chest. This wasn't about cash. It was about the workshop, the people, the craft. I met Marcus at a diner on the outskirts of Savannah, the kind of place where the coffee's strong and the boots are worn. It was 2 p.m., and the place was quiet save for a few locals. Margaret got me a year's severance, Marcus said, stirring his coffee. Not your deal, but something. They want an NDA. You signing? No choice. My son's starting trade school. Need the money. He gave a dry laugh. 30 years designing furniture, and now I can't talk about it. I slid a business card across the table. Nathan Brooks, Brooks & Sons. He's looking for a consultant, someone who knows custom joinery. No NDA, Marcus stared at the card. Coastal Craft would sue me. Not if you're advising on industry standards. Nothing proprietary there. He pocketed the card. What's your play, Walter? You're not the type to stir trouble. I leaned forward. I'm partnering with Nathan. He's backing me to start a new division at Brooks & Sons. Custom furniture, small batch, high-end. The stuff Elise thinks is inefficient. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Henry always said custom was Coastal's future. Elise is gutting it for mass-market junk. She can't compete with big-box stores on price, I said. Not with our labor costs. Does Henry know? Not yet. But Ellen told me Elise is selling equipment. The custom lathes Henry bought 2 years ago? Half are gone at auction prices. Marcus whistled. That's $1.5 million in machinery, probably sold for pennies. She's liquidating, I said, converting assets to cash. Guess who's been buying condos in Charleston? Jesus. Marcus ran a hand through his gray hair. Henry built this for legacy, not a quick payout. We sat in silence, the weight of it settling over us. Not just for us, but for the 90 employees at Coastal Craft. Folks with bills, kids, dreams. What's next? Marcus asked. Build something better, I said. Something that honors the craft and the people. A month later, I faced a new challenge. Word of my partnership with Brooks & Sons had spread, and a group of local furniture retailers, loyal to Coastal Craft, confronted me at a community meeting. You're betraying Savannah's legacy, one shop owner said, his voice loud in the crowded town hall. Coastal Craft's been here for decades. You're helping an Augusta outsider steal our business. I stood, hands in my pockets, and faced the room. I didn't leave Coastal Craft. They pushed me out, and they're pushing out the quality you've sold for years. I'm building something to keep that craft alive, right here in Savannah. If you want to talk legacy, let's talk about the workers losing their jobs while Elise Carver sells off the tools they need. The room went quiet. A few nodded. It wasn't a victory, but it was a start. Later, one retailer slipped me his card, whispering, "Call me when you're up and running." 3 months after my firing, I stood in a leased warehouse on Savannah's west side, reviewing plans for Tidewater Artisans, our new venture. Nathan Brooks, a wiry man with a fisherman's tan, spread supplier contracts across a folding table. Woodshops are lined up, he said. First batch of custom chairs ships in 6 weeks. And the finishers? 2 start next week, both ex-Coastal Craft, thanks to you. I nodded. One was Sarah Tate, a 25-year-old finisher I'd mentored at Coastal. She'd quit after Elise cut her hours, but she'd called me last week, voice trembling with loyalty. I don't care about Elise's threats, she'd said. I want to work for you. Her trust meant more than the contracts piling up. My phone buzzed. A text from Ellen, still at Coastal Craft, risking her job to keep me informed. Attached was a photo of an internal memo. Delayed orders, failed inspections, 2 major clients threatening to cancel. I showed Nathan. Just like we thought, he said. They're bleeding talent. I felt no joy in it. Coastal Craft employed people I'd known for years. Their struggles weren't my goal. We should contact Southern Estates, I said, naming one of Coastal's biggest clients. Let them know we're operational in a month. Nathan grinned. Already set for Friday. My phone rang. Henry's name. I need to take this, I told Nathan, stepping outside. Walter, Henry said, voice heavy. I know about Tidewater, the people you're hiring. I stayed silent. It was all above board. "I'm not calling to stop you," he said. "I need your help." That stopped me cold. "What kind?" "The kind that might save Coastal Craft. Elise is selling off assets, cutting quality. The board's worried. So am I." "Why me?" "Because you know this company better than anyone, and because I should have listened when you said she wasn't ready." I thought of the rocking chair in my garage, half finished, a promise to my grandchild, of the oak tree in my yard standing through storms, of the workers I'd hired, trained, believed in. "What are you asking, Henry?" "Come to my place tonight, 7. Bring Marcus if he's willing. The board wants options." "Options?" "A change in leadership." I looked at the warehouse, at the skeleton of Tidewater taking shape. "I'll come," I said, "but no promises." "Thank you, Walter," he said, relief clear, for still answering. 6 months later, I stood in Coastal Craft's main conference room during the quarterly meeting. Elise was at the head, her new team, mostly young, all uneasy, flanking her. I was to wait until the end, per the board's request, letting Elise present her numbers. A 34% revenue drop, lost clients, shoddy products. She was blaming supply chain issues when she spotted me. "What's he doing here?" she demanded. Henry, seated with the board, nodded to the chairman, who stood. "Elise, the board has decided on a leadership change." Her face paled. "You can't—" "Walter," the chairman said, "please explain the arrangement." I stepped forward, holding a folder. "Tidewater Artisans is merging with Coastal Craft. The board approved the deal this morning." Elise laughed, sharp and brittle. "I'm the majority shareholder." "No," Henry said, standing slowly. "You hold 20%. I kept 51%, and I voted for the merger." I slid the folder to her. "Tidewater will take over Coastal's custom furniture division. The rest continues under new management." Marcus stepped in. "That'd be me." Elise's hands shook as she scanned the papers. This is business," I said. "Nothing personal." A year after the merger, I walked the expanded Tidewater Coastal facility, the scent of sawdust and varnish filling the air. Workers moved with purpose, crafting pieces that married old techniques with new designs. Henry joined me on the mezzanine, his cane tapping softly. He looked stronger, revived by the company's rebound. "Early numbers," he said, handing me a tablet. "Best in 6 years." I scanned the data. Margins up, retention steady, 4 new clients. "Good," I said. "Elise called from Charleston," Henry said. "Starting a lifestyle brand. Asked me to invest." "You going to?" He shook his head. "Told her to come back to Savannah. Learn the craft from the ground up like we did." He paused. "She called again today. Asked if I meant it." Below, Sarah was teaching a new hire how to apply lacquer. Marcus was tweaking a chair design. Ellen, now head of quality, inspected a table with her usual precision. Experience and youth, side by side, building something lasting. "When I wrote your contract," Henry said, "I never thought it'd lead here." I smiled, thinking of the rocking chair I'd finished last month, now in my daughter's nursery. Neither did I. We watched the workshop hum, a testament to craft, to value, to the things worth fighting for. Some lessons come at a cost. The ones that endure are worth every penny,